We're going to talk about whether or not Jocko Wilink was right about what he said about calisthenics versus weights, and we're going to start right now. So Jocko Wilink had a podcast, this is about a year ago. A couple people have asked me, hey Dane, what do you think about Jocko and his take on calisthenics versus weights? And so I think it's important, probably everybody really does know who Jocko Wilink is. He's, I believe he was a former Navy SEAL, and now he's got like a supplement line, he's got his podcast, he's very prevalent in the fitness community. He's a popular guy. He's also, I think he's got a couple books. He's a motivational type guy, sort of like own your life, change everything, and it's all about you. Don't blame other people. Good stuff. Maybe a little bit overbearing, but like that self-help motivational type dude that everybody needs once in a while. But I do believe his products are pretty good products. Anyway, he's got a podcast. We're going to check this out, and we're going to go into what he says and whether or not it's accurate or not.
What's your opinion on calisthenics versus weights?
I've got to say this first. I don't know if this is for sure, but if you see his co-host Echo Charles, that's one thing that I've always noticed with CrossFitters, but also my wife has her brother and her sister both graduated from West Point, and everything comes down to, echo is like a military term using the word E, or the letter E. Everything always comes back to acronyms, so I always make fun of them like that. Why? How do you live a life in acronyms? But it's probably simpler, really.
Again, for me, both. I like them both. With calisthenics, you get that endurance strength, you get some flexibility and some mobility out of it. They're pretty natural movements, right? They're pretty natural movements. They're things that you're doing with your human body.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm not just sort of nitpicking here. I would say things that you're doing with your human body, calisthenics, you do with your human body, but also lifting weights, you will do with your human body. I think he is accurate, though, right off the bat with calisthenics. I think you can get a little bit more mobility work done when you're doing that body weight stuff. So endurance-based, more volume, the load's not as heavy, so that's actually, that's on point.
They're going to be more natural. Weights obviously make you stronger, more explosive. At a certain point, they also can be more injury-inducing.
One thing to define this stuff, right, is to get into this a little bit deeper so he mentions weights can make you more explosive. Absolutely. Now, calisthenics. So if we can define that, I look at calisthenics as body weight exercises, things that you're going to do with just your body weight. So push-ups, body weight squats, walking lunges, stuff like that. But I even believe to a point that plyometrics are actually a form of calisthenics. So I would say, how can I word this, where it basically be like you're just going to be using body weight stuff for most plyometrics. Some plyometrics you're going to be using a load. So I do believe that calisthenics can help you get a little bit more explosive if you're utilizing it doing plyometric work.
And at another point, they're also less injury inducing. So there's a certain point where if you have an injury in your shoulder, and you normally would do handstand push-ups, which means you're lifting up 230 pounds. With weight training, you could lift up 40 pounds if you want to, right? So it goes both ways, where sometimes calisthenics might be the more injury-inducing thing, and sometimes weight training might be the more injury-inducing things. Mm-hmm. That's why you got to balance the two of them. And for instance, if I hurt my ankle,
I think that's a really fair point. I think it's also another factor where if we're doing, I actually like that example where maybe you are a little banged up, you hurt something, you can lighten the load when you're doing a barbell movement. You can just squat the bar. You could goblet squat with maybe you hurt your back. You goblet squat with just a dumbbell. It's 30 pounds. It's easier to change that, and you can still do the body weight work later. So right off the bat, he is saying, all right, let's use both in different scenarios, and they're not necessarily, one might not be better than the other, but let's go into how he explains this and see if there's any holes in it or if he's spot on.
A couple months ago, and I could not put any weight on the squat bar. So I was just doing, pistols and air squats, jumps and box jumps. I was using things that didn't have any weight because I could do all that, but the minute I put weight on my back, anything above body weight.
I'm a little confused because he said he hurt his ankle he hurt his ankle. It hurt when he put weight on his back, but he could do box jumps, but it didn't hurt his ankle. I'm just interested to know what that injury was that made it okay to do box jumps. I'm not saying he's wrong.
Get me there. And then the same exact opposite, I had my shoulder was tweaked 6 months ago, and I was having a hard time doing handstand push-ups because it was just the wrong angle.
I'm also interested to know why everything's in black and white. Like, I don't know if that creates that edge, makes it like that tougher feeling, but it's interesting that the podcast is in black and white.
And so I was just using, I was doing press with a lighter weight than my body weight in order to keep the blood moving, in order to keep the system moving. Because that's what I think you got to do. So I think you got to find a balance of both, which means I'm not great at either one of them. I'm not going to win in any weightlifting competitions, and I'm not going to win in a gymnastics competition either. And there are some guys, especially now, I mean, there's some guys that are getting...
I think it makes a really, really good point. Like, getting good at both of these, especially if, in his case, you know, he's older. I think he's close to 50 years old now, and he looks great, right? So it's like, how can we balance both of these for longevity? And I even think for sports performance, for athletes, we're gonna do some hip mobility or some ankle mobility or some knee work or some very simple lower back work with just your body weight. And I even think about doing a back extension. It's a calisthenic if you're just using your back, if you're just using your body weight. So getting really good at both of those is gonna help with longevity.
Sick shape. You watch the guys in the CrossFit Games right now. They're savages, and they're doing both the calisthenics and the weightlifting. And actually, I was reading something about it the other day, and it's becoming more weightlifting focused. You know, whether it's Olympic.
What is
CrossFit? The CrossFit.
Okay.
I shouldn't say it's getting that more focused, but if you want to win the CrossFit Games, you got to be able to lift some heavy weights. You got to be able to deadlift a lot, snatch a lot, clean and jerk a lot. And if you can deadlift a lot, clean and jerk a lot, and snatch a lot, you're going to be able to do, and at least you practice the other movements, the muscle up, the pull-ups. You're gonna be much more apt to be able to do those things than the other way around.
Okay, I absolutely 100% agree. So I think, right there he goes into, if you have somebody who does a snatch or a clean or a jerk and a back squat and a front squat and single leg squats, and they're doing these strength movements with barbell, so they're doing weighted movements with basic resistance training, right? Like typical conventional style, not even getting into the nitty gritty, just doing conventional lifting movements. And they're still practicing those body weight movements. What he's talking about right now is absolutely transfer of training. Okay, so if I can snatch a double body weight, let's say I'm a freak, I'm somebody like Jake Horse who snatches double body weight, and I'm practicing pistols, I'm practicing pull-ups, rope climbs, muscle ups, I'm able to increase my strength. So that way, when I'm doing my conventional movements in resistance-based training, like snatches, like cleans, like jerks, like back squats, like deadlifts, and I'm increasing that strength, and I'm still practicing the skill-based body weight, the calisthenic movements, the power and the strength I'm getting from back squats and from cleans is going to transfer over to calisthenic movements like, plyometrics, hurdle hops, stair jumps, box jumps, and then ultimately any other form of body weight movement. So I think when we're talking about calisthenics versus barbell movements and resistance-based training, I think Jocko Wilink, spot on, absolutely 100% accurate. You've got to pick really what's going to transfer best to your specific sport if you're an athlete, what's going to transfer best to longevity of living, and then figure out in your own programming, in your training, all right, this is how I want to set this up. This is how I want this to be focused so that we can really develop both modalities in training. And ultimately for somebody who's a little bit older, like myself, like Jocko, now you can have that healthier lifestyle that's going to improve your longevity. So I agree with Jocko Wilink, spot on. If you need help with your programming, if you're an older person and you're looking for a little bit of programming that's got some big resistance-based training, it's got some calisthenic training, it's got some bodybuilding in it, click on that link down below, head over to garagestrength.com, and we've got a Ghost Face program. It's a program that I follow specifically to help me improve my longevity, to improve my general strength, but also to improve my ability to perform and execute calisthenics. Click on that link, go over to garagestrength.com. Until next time, peace.